in. Do I know this guy? Hugh Hewitt. Hugh Hewitt, host of the Hugh Hewitt Show on Salem Radio Network, and an NBC News political analyst who is author of the new book, The Fourth Way, the Conservative Playbook for a Lasting GOP Majority. Hugh, you know, it's almost like, you know, I get to know someone, former relationships in my life that I've had, and then all of a sudden we just go cold turkey because you moved your show to the same time as my show. I mean, we used to talk every week, and I miss those days.
Every Monday.
Yeah.
And my audience is in revolt, Joe, that you haven't been back. And where's Kernen? They want to talk to Kernen. I said, well, he's working this morning, just like I'm working. Bill Bennett retired. So I took over the 6 to 9 a.m. East Coast big bus of radio, which is morning drive, just like Squawk Box is to the financial markets. My show is now to people who are driving to work and listening to their radio. But it's great to make it work this way with the NBC camera, and thank you for having me on. I'm pleased to be here.
I wish we could figure some other way of doing this. But you were a big deal when I was on your show, but suddenly it's like MSM decided, you know, can we get one guy from the other side, maybe, to put on, maybe just stick him in there, like, once in a while? And there you were. There you were. You got the hair. You seem normal. You know, you're not like the other. You're not like the wackos that are mostly those reactionary freaks on your side of things. And you became a huge in MSM. Everybody, you're in demand, right?
Yeah, Frank Luntz came up to me after the first presidential debate. I did 4 of them last year, and I interviewed Donald Trump 15 times during the campaign. He said, you don't have no idea what's about to hit you after you're on a presidential debate. And he was right. When 21 million people tune in and they don't think you're insane, you're just a normal conservative like you and me, Joe, all of a sudden people in the media say, let's get that guy on as a responsible conservative. There are actually lots of us, but most of MSM is not in a hurry to find us. And I think that's changing. I think that's changing dramatically. I think it's a very overdue and good change.
So in the past, Hugh, we have seen both parties snatch defeat from the jaws of victory again and again and again. When you say go big and do everything at once, you know, it seems like that's already happening, and some people would say that the ill effects of going too big too fast are already happening. You don't think so? You think you got to strike while the iron is hot?
No, foot to the metal. I had on David McIntosh today talking about the Congressional Review Act and the border adjustment tax. The latter is a horrible idea. Using the Congressional Review Act is a terrific idea. A chapter in The Fourth Way is about leave the mortgage interest deduction alone. I watched Steve Mnuchin on your show the day after he was nominated say they're going to cap the home mortgage interest deduction. So I wrote a chapter in The Fourth Way about why that is a terrible idea, as is reducing the deductibility of state and local income taxes and the charitable deduction. The Republicans need to go far, go fast, go big on smart things like regulatory rollback, like building a 350-ship Navy. Like today, I think today we're going to get a Supreme Court justice that they ought to just jam down and put on the court in time for the May sitting of the court or the April sitting of the court so that the new justice can make a 5-4 split if necessary on cases. But they don't want to wait around. They don't want to do stupid things fast. They want to do smart things fast. And there are plenty of them. I outlined them in The Fourth Way. And I think if we can just make sure that we're focused on the smart things and really work, I think the American people expect Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan to keep those houses of Congress in session around the clock, blowing back rules that don't satisfy the Congressional Review Act day by day. I want to see it happen.
So, Hugh, you weren't necessarily, I don't think you were a never-Trumper, but I don't think you were a full-throated backer of Trump. Is he the right guy with this Republican Congress to be able to do what you think is right? Or, I mean, was what happened Friday going against what you just recommended, or was that the right thing to do on Friday, and was it done in the right way with the immigration?
It was not done the right way because there was a very bad rollout, but it's consistent with what Trump campaigned on. I was never a never-Trumper. I criticized him when he does dumb things like attack Judge Curiel. I support him when he does very smart things like meet with Theresa May and go to the congressional retreat. I've always been a supporter of the border wall because it's the visible expression of an invisible commitment to sovereignty. I like the fact that he reinstated the Mexico City policy. I'm sure I'll like his Supreme Court nominee if it comes from his list of 21. So I'll support him when he does smart things, and what he's done that's really the best. General Mattis, now Secretary Mattis, General Kelly, now Secretary Kelly. Scott Pruitt at the EPA is one of the smartest lawyers in America. That's going to be extraordinarily good. And Andy Posner, who's been on your show many times, an old friend of mine, he is going to be the hidden jewel of this administration. As Bill Bennett was to Reagan, the evangelist who shows up on a pulpit you didn't know existed. Andy Posner is going to go out and preach why, for example, franchising, which was invented here in America, is the greatest means to increase personal wealth ever constructed by the private sector. Andy Posner is going to be terrific. So Donald Trump is off to, I think, a 90% great start. Described it as going to a concert with a great band, but there are a couple of tunes in the place that you don't like, and sometimes it seems like you're at the battle of the band and three bands are playing at once, but it's a very good start. Yesterday and the day before, I think Reince Priebus was right. 325,000 people entered the United States on Saturday. 109 of them were detained. That's unfortunate. The burden on them was harsh. We got it fixed. General Kelly put out a word today that green card holders are not covered. It makes sense. It's like President Obama's order in 2011. A lot of the reactions hysterical, but a little more information on the front end rather than a little more explanation on the back end going forward.
So, Hugh, you remember the Reagan era, and at that point, most people would not admit to even being a liberal back then. So now we've been through the Obama era where the pendulum swung, and I think we got really stretched. And I just wonder, how long whether this is an actual sea change, whether the voters on Election Day said we're still center-right. I'm not sure. I look at millennials, and the jury's still out. I look at college professors and what goes on colleges. I don't know if it's possible to bring it back to what we remember. Hugh, do you think that this could be a lasting conservative sort of zeitgeist in this country?
I believe the realignment is right in front of us, Joe. I can see it. I can touch it. It's why I sat down and spent 60 days writing a book. The realignment depends upon President Trump doing one thing. The Nixon to China moment for Trump is an immigration overhaul. He's very tough on the border. That's great. He's very tough on the immigration entry from jihadist states or states that are in turmoil. That's great. But he did not revoke DACA. That's very important. And I think you could see him do an immigration overhaul that isn't that much different from the Lindsey Graham overhaul, provided that citizenship in there. And if he delivers that, if he surprises people with an immigration overhaul that makes sense for everyone, you'll have a realignment of American politics. And if he builds infrastructure in the inner city, he'll take his 8%, I think it's 6 to 8% of the African-American vote. If he doubles that, Democrats are in the wilderness for 40 years. And so they're very afraid of Donald Trump, not that he's going to fail, but that he's going to succeed. And on Obamacare as well, if he replaces it with a market-driven, equitable access, competitive marketplace with one national market, people are going to love Donald Trump. It's all about the execution, but that realignment is right there in front of us.
How's Dwayne? Maybe I'll talk to Dwayne, and maybe we can do this more. Sometimes I get very lonely here. Hugh, and I hear you, and it's like, wow, if I had you just nearby or where I could get you on the phone quickly at certain times, it would help me.
Anytime, Joe. This NBC camera makes it easy. He's right through there, and thank you for having me on,
And you're like an NBC guy, too, right? Aren't you some kind of NBC something or other?
We can have Hugh just pipe in every time. Every time I get difficult, Hugh. I didn't even ask you a question just because we haven't had time. I wanted to let the loving happen, but we'll when you come on back, we can continue the conversation.
I need you.
I have a little button. You will be patched right in.
Exactly.
That would work for me. All right, Hugh.